Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Preston M. Smith. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm Preston M. Smith, at PMS Artwork everywhere on internet land and socials. I want to thank you for landing on this podcast. Whether you're a professional artist, just getting started in the art world, a collector of art, or just consider yourself a creative person, this podcast has something for you. I like to think of it as a fun way to rant and talk to other creative people about living the life of an artist, surviving and getting ahead in the art world, and enjoying your life. But most importantly, not waiting until you're dead to make it happen. All right, let's get started.
Everybody, this is Tony Roberts. Open your textbooks to page 2, okay? Because today we're going to talk about...
Oh, shit. Okay, I was hurting my voice anyway. Let's get into it. This is what happens when you get too into an impression at the beginning and you hurt yourself. Hurt by podcast. That's got to be a new one. I wanted to start off with our good friend, Tony Robbins, who, as Pete Holmes would say, scandal noted. T-Rob, you might remember a lot of his old books and books on tape where he'd always have that cheesy, like, conquering the world music at the beginning. Even when I liked what he was doing, I was like, can we not do that, please? But anyway, I was thinking about it, T-Rob, today, especially his work with neuroassociations and patterns, habits, breaking patterns, as he would call interrupting your pattern. I think that's all great stuff. It still applies today. And I was realizing that it happens in my own work, and I'm sure it happens in a lot of your work too. And I thought we'd just take a little bit of time to talk about it today because we all need a little pattern interrupt from time to time here. And what does that look like? Okay, we all fall into patterns. Our brain gets used to acting a certain way, behaving a certain way. And the more you behave a certain way, you fall into a pattern. Your brain almost goes into these grooves. It's like driving your car on a muddy dirt road that's just been washed out too many times and you got the wheel grooves there. It's much easier. Your car almost falls into them even if you don't want to be driving in them. That's kind of like what your brain does. And this can be reinforced positively and negatively. It can be reinforced by, let's say you're posting something to Instagram and the first 4 or 5 times you post a certain way, you get a great response. People are responding. So you get this positive reinforcement. Oh, okay, well, when I post this way, I get this kind of response. I get X kind of response. Your brain's tendency is to be like, I'm going to do more of that. So you fall into this pattern. What happens is over time, maybe some people don't react the same way, or maybe Instagram changes, or people want to see more from you, and they stop behaving and responding in the same way that they have been before. So all of a sudden you're like, what the hell? I'm following the playbook. I'm doing the same thing I was doing before, and nobody's responding the same way anymore. But you keep doing it, and it keeps frustrating you. How do you get out of a negative rut or pattern like this? Well, as T-Rob would say, you got to interrupt that pattern.
You got to interrupt that pattern.
And that can be difficult to do on your own. It takes a very strong-willed, strong-minded person, and a person who is aware of their own thoughts to be able to do this. It's like if you do a lot of meditation, if you can become aware of your own thoughts, if you train yourself to be aware of your own thoughts, then you can start to witness them and witness these behavioral patterns, and then maybe you can start changing them. This can happen in a myriad of ways. Like you can fall into many different types of patterns, good and bad. For me, I think the most sneaky patterns to fall into are the ones that start off positively, the ones where I'm actually kicking some ass or doing well with something and I get used to it and then I lose sight of something else. For example, I've done really well selling my work online. I've also sold work in galleries, but it's been a little bit more of an uphill struggle or battle with brick and mortar galleries than with online sales for me, because I think I have more control over what I put into the online sales. So there's been a tendency for me to gravitate more towards the online art marketplaces, my website, social media, things that I can control. And it completely makes sense. And I think that's happening a lot right now with anybody. But the point is it's not the only avenue. And I think also that's been reinforced by the pandemic. So, well, we're not doing anything right now. We can't go to brick and mortar galleries, but this also could be a good time for you to reach out to galleries, because I know that galleries are also going through this. But there's a tendency to be like, well, I'm going to focus on my online stuff. I'm going to focus on my online art sales. And you fall into a pattern or tunnel vision with that. So I've recognized that a little bit with myself. I've noticed some other people getting some opportunities with some galleries or representation. And I was like, oh yeah, that still exists. And there was a time when I had more of a balance where I was doing a little bit of both. I was designating part of my week towards pushing the gallery side, pushing the brick and mortar side, reaching out to grants, reaching out to potential representation, that kind of stuff. And then, flipping the switch and going to the online world. Now, I've been super busy with the podcast and YouTube and everything else, but that's no excuse. The point is I witnessed this with myself. And so now I thought it would be interesting to talk about it. I'm sure it's happening to a lot of you out there too. Maybe we just need to interrupt this pattern a little bit and regain some focus on some other avenues. I think a lot of this stuff has been highly exacerbated by the virus, which will not be named, because right now it's so easy to fall into these patterns. It's like, well, I would, but, pandemic, so I'm not going to. Or, I would get out of bed at 8 a.m, get started, but, pandemic, so I'm going to click the snooze button. Or I really should get in the studio today, but pandemic. I probably should work off these COVID-20 that I gained over the last 9 months, but you get the idea here, people. So how do we break this pattern?
How do we interrupt this pattern?
Well, you start by being aware of it, being aware that it exists. If you got somebody in your domicile with you, it can be a little easier. That is if you listen to them. I know some people are at each other's throat after being quarantined together, but assuming you have a good relationship with this person, assuming that you trust this person's judgment and they point something out to you and you go, oh, you know what? That is correct. I should do something about that. Well, now's an opportunity to use that person to call you on your bullshit and help you interrupt that pattern or break that pattern. So if they see you falling into something, well, first, let me back up. Just make the person aware of this pattern. Hey, have you noticed that I've been gaining a little weight here? Have you noticed that I haven't been getting up at 7 a.m. anymore? I've been getting up at noon. Fill in the blank. Make them aware of it. They probably already are. But if they're not, make sure that they're aware of it and say, hey, let's come up with some sort of strategy to interrupt this pattern. Maybe if you're sleeping in till noon, maybe this person can throw a bucket of water on you at 8 o'clock in the morning, or honk a funny clown horn. Just kidding. Yeah, that might be a little too much, but you can work out some sort of strategy. Maybe you come up with a strategy for them to set their own alarm or to set up your favorite song to wake you up. Maybe they can coax you out of bed another way. Get creative with it. Let's say it's weight. Maybe you put on the COVID-20 and you don't want it. You're like, that's it. No more. I'm not gaining 1 more pound. Maybe it's as simple as your significant other calling you on it every time you pick up the hoagie. Do people eat hoagies anymore? I don't know. But sometimes you just need some accountability. Maybe you give somebody a crisp $100 bill, a good friend or your wife or boyfriend or husband, and say, look, if I gain 1 more goddamn pound, you get to keep that $100 bill and you can use it on whatever you want. There's some motivation right there, some accountability. But a lot of times this isn't so obvious. It's not so sinister. For me, for example, I'm working my butt off every day. I'm doing all my things. they are getting results, and I could just continue to go, down the line every day, peel back the calendar, and I could do this into the foreseeable future and get good results from it. So what's the harm in that, right? Just keep doing it. Well, the harm in that for me is I know it's easy to fall into these patterns and to get complacent. And sometimes you end up cutting off different opportunities for yourself. So I have that awareness. Now it's time to, interrupt that pattern, make sure that I'm trying some of these other things. Well, maybe the reason why I'm not doing them in the first place is because it's harder to reach out to a grant program or a residency or another gallery or whatever. You fill in the blank. Maybe that's harder. Maybe I need a little bit more of a pep talk to do that. Well, okay. Whenever that inner voice chimes in and says, you know what, just don't do it. You're all right. I need to have that witness to make myself aware of it. And then all of a sudden to say, okay, get up. You're doing this. Maybe, for example, when I was a little younger and I had some problems with depression, I would force myself to get up when I was feeling bad or feeling down or feeling like I couldn't do something. I would force myself to get up and do like 100 jumping jacks. And that would automatically get the blood flowing, get some energy flowing through my body, some oxygen to my system, and you feel better. You just get into a better state of mind, and all of a sudden, it doesn't seem as hard. Put on some really powerful music. Put on some music that gets you riled up, and you'll find all of a sudden that it's not as big of a deal as you thought it was. It's easy when you're sitting in your chair on the computer and you're just getting into robot mode. And click, 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 scroll, click. It's easy to just do that until the day's over. Well, once you notice you're doing that, you're getting bored and you're getting a little complacent, jump out of the chair, do some push-ups, do some jumping jacks, run around the block, punch yourself in the face, whatever you need to do. Light your hand on fire. Okay, don't do that. But do whatever you need to do to not only interrupt the pattern, but shock your brain and system into action. And this works, I'm telling you, it really does. So whether you have somebody quarantined with you who can call you on your BS, call you out and say, look, you're doing that pattern again, time to do this, or you're by yourself like me working all day and you have to find that motivation from within. It's the same principle. You just need to, instead of having this other person witness it, even if you are counting on this other person to witness it, it's more powerful if you yourself practice this, because this person might not always be around. Or when the quarantine ends, they might go back to their job and you have to do it to yourself then. You can't just be reliant upon another person. So practice this yourself, even if you're with another person, and especially if you're by yourself. I think that you'll find that this is very powerful and it's really good at getting you into some new patterns. Hey, maybe your new pattern becomes that you don't fall into patterns. Maybe it becomes it's exciting to try new things all the time. And I think you'll see a lot of momentum coming from that. I know I have in the past. I've only just recently witnessed myself falling back into some patterns over almost a year of the virus, which will not be named. And I think that is normal. I think it's very normal. And I think a lot of us are probably going through the same stuff. This is just a friendly reminder from your friend at PMS Hardwork to get up off your ass and get some momentum going. Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point too much. I think you get it. I think you understand. I think a lot of you probably witnessed this in your own life right now and just hoping this is a little kick in the pants to get going. So let's break some patterns. Let's get back on track. I don't know why I just fell into W there, but it's fun. Anyway, wishing y'all all the best out there and wishing you lots of success. Hope to see some of you at the 2 virtual openings that are coming up at Shockbox this weekend. Wait, actually, by the time this comes out, it'll be last weekend. So I hope I saw you at the Intergalactic Open 2. I know that's going to be a fun one. Rather, I know that was a fun one. But also got Carrie Maurice's Camo's solo show coming up, Cones to Bones, in February. Not sure the exact opening date on that, but you'll get it on all the Shockbox socials. Hope to see you on social media. Reach out and let me know how you're doing. Let's get going this year. And T-Rob, play us out. This has been the Living Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I just want you to know that I appreciate you being here, and I'm grateful to be in your ears. Your art and creative life on this planet is meaningful, so thank you for sharing it with me. If you like this podcast, whatever platform you're listening to it on, please subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also leave me a positive review to show your support. This helps me to reach more people with the algorithmic magic and keep the show going strong. If you want to see more of what I do and check out the art that I create, you can visit my website at www.pmsartwork.com or follow me on social media everywhere at PMS Artwork. That's it for now. See you back here next time.